Good evening, fellow MyClass community, and welcome to this third season of the session. Today is our inaugural episode, or our first episode of 2023, and we are very excited to be hosting our fellow All Boy alumni, Mr. Peter Armitage. Peter, welcome.
Thank you very much, Terry.
Very, very happy to have you on board, and thank you very much for taking the time. It's certainly long been coming. A lot of people have actually asked me whether we have interviewed Peter before, or maybe you would love to also hear him speak. So it's really, really happy to have you. It's a great privilege and honor, and thank you for making the time.
Well, it's a pleasure. Great to be here.
Great, great, great. So, as you all know, the mentoring feature, which is really the foundation for why we have these sessions, is available on OM Plus as a feature, and we encourage the entire community that's involved in OM Plus to put their hands up and sign up for the mentorship feature if they would like to be a mentor or if they would like to be menteed. The platform is really there for us to do matchmaking around that. But I suppose the purpose of these sessions as well is to have a broad overview and understanding, and to really walk through the journey of what some of our old boys have walked through before we get into the specifics of mentorship. And Peter, just to kind of reflect on your journey at Michaelhouse as a first question. So how did you experience it? What's your first memory of it? And we'll take it from there.
Teddy, I started there in 1986. I was quite upset when I saw the little diagram in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. When you get a bit older, it's nicer to hear when you... Actually, I ended in 1986, so that's representative.
I was about to say.
I started in 1982. So it's actually even worse than I was thinking.
Yeah,
it's weird to think back. So I came from a small government school in Durban called Penzance Primary. I had a bursary.
I was also
there. You had Penzance, no ways.
Gordon Road, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's an amazing history. No worries. Okay.
But I wasn't there in 1982. I wasn't born yet.
I think I was there in the year the school started almost. I actually had a DHS blazer. I was about to go to DHS and then got a 75% scholarship.
Okay.
So I changed my plans and went off to Michaelhouse. Yeah. And it started in E Block, carried through until did the full 5 years. And back in those days, they asked somebody to stay back to be the what do you call it now, the head boy or the senior prefect, I think was the so that was so I was actually set, I was set off to go off to university, and then they asked me to stay back. So I actually spent 6 years there, and spent a great last year. So there's quite a nice story around the end of my schooling days, but great memories. Obviously an amazing time. And when you come from Penzance Primary, it's a proper change of scenery.
No, definitely lots to share. Hey, and tell us about that 6th year. Were you in senior prefect in that 6th year, or just general post matric?
Yeah, so I was the senior prefect of the school, and
okay.
That's that in those days they worked you pretty hard. So nobody in the matric year
like
was
my
the senior
days.
prefect. So,
oh, really?
There was, I think there were about 20-25 kids. So I actually did UNISA first year in the post matric year. So I kind of went straight into second year university, which was a bit punishing because I behaved a little bit like a first year in my second year. So
and speaking about toughness, I mean, how was Michaelhouse like in your days in terms of E Block? So just talk us through 1982 E Block. E Block nowadays is obviously very different, but the whole cacking system and how was it like then?
Yeah, I actually find it quite. I was quite a frail child, I guess. I wasn't. Michaelhouse toughened me up a bit. I think there's a physical education teacher called Gordon Patterson who's written a few books, and I used to be the first team rugby coach. And he sent me an article he dedicated a few pages of his book to me, where he talked about, he fondly referred to me arriving at school as a bit of a schoolyard reject. I thought
only
was
he knew you now, huh?
You kind of got that picture of somebody who, if they clapped their hands, would kind of miss. But it's, then he told the story of how I kind of moved on and developed, and I was never a great sportsman at the end of the day. I think I captained the third team rugby, but that was obviously well beyond what he expected in the early days.
Yeah.
So back in E Block, I think it was a warm environment. I think there wasn't, it could be quite physical. The guys, there'd be a lot of rolling, and in those days you still got, I don't know when they stopped it, you still got caned. But I think by and large, the prefects that I had and the guys that looked after you, it was a proper nurturing environment, and they welcomed you into it. I think like any situation, and whether it be physical or mental or the like, there's the bullies, and as you move on in life, you experience post school years, you experience the people who bullied you a little bit, and you kind of you get relieved that you weren't a bully to others. I had to check a few times. I've come across a few people in the working world where you kind of one guy was my cack, and I said to him, "Well, I was just thinking that I was all right to you, because it was you have an impression of how you behaved." But I think a great environment. The school then was about 550 kids. And it was all in all a great experience.
And Pascoe in particular, how was Pascoe in those days? I know quite a few people around your time.
Well, Pascoe, when I think back and you go to your tie rack, that kind of sickly brown color, which we were very proud of in those days, you wonder whether they couldn't have come up with something a little bit more colorful, a little less offensive. But Pascoe was near the end. There was just, right a few k's more down the road was Baines. I think the older houses had the people whose parents had been there, and they wanted to put their kids in the same houses. So it tended to be people with out of my class history. But it's I mean, I think the school and the accommodation and everything is dramatically different to how it was back then. I think in the year that I left, Spudge came the following year. Some similarities with what we saw on the TV screen, but it's I think it's if you kept a smile on your face and kept a positive attitude, I think you got a hell of a lot out of the environment. I think another point is I mean, in those days, without social media, we were all in khaki shorts and a white t-shirt, and nobody was differentiated. I mean, only years after school did I realize the kind of the high-profile family members, the Oppenheimer kids and the Eindhoven kids, and that you were at school with and mixing with, and nobody knew or cared. And I think I would imagine that element is very different today, where people are much more aware of who's who. So you survived and you flourished and you conquered based on who you were and what you could bring to the party.
Yeah, I actually had the same experience back in my days. I can't speak for today's years, but in my days, I also had a similar experience. I didn't know these boys' parents were CEOs or founders or Oppenheimers. We were just the same old khaki shorts, white t-shirts.
Kids at school.
Kids at school. Although on some Sundays during free browns, you'd see the odd helicopter landing here and there, but still didn't make a difference.
Yeah.
So
the only time a helicopter landed in my life before that was if it was 911.
Okay. And then just tell us, Peter, do you have a particular memory or a story that you'd like to share about Michaelhouse? Anything in particular? Just a highlight.
Yeah, I think if I take the progression from the early days right till the end, and reflecting on people that I've mixed with post school years, I think the when what the one's kind of a negative but a bit of a lesson, and the other one's a positive, is I clearly remember one of the prefects in our house who at the stage you'd have a bit of cack to the roof, or cack to the wall, and you have to make coffee or toast or do whatever they wanted. And the guys would give you a few chesties, but there was one guy who had a mean streak in him, and you'd classify him as a bully thing. I won't say any more. But I went on, 15 years later, and you come across that person in the business world, and when you spend 5 or 6 years with somebody, well, obviously he was a prefect, so it was only a year. But you kind of learn to understand people and value people and appreciate people. And as I moved through school, when I became a prefect and the new guys came along, I think one of the nicest compliments I received was a chap who arrived. I saw him 10, 15 years after school. He's in the private equity space in Johannesburg. And he said to me, and I couldn't even remember, when he arrived at the school, and I picked up his trunk with him and I carried it with him to the house and helped him unpack the thing. And, just that kind of softness and generosity, which I think the school and the spirit of the school is all there. And then there's another guy I'm actually in business with today who was one of my other cacks of the three who were I kind of looked after, they looked after me. We started getting to business, and he was part of the acquisition team in our business. And suddenly I thought, hell, I hope I treated this guy well. So I sat him down and said, Chris, I just want to clarify, it was not your feeling. I was a good mentor, and he gave me generally positive feedback. Although he said there was one occasion when I got a brand new pair of black Adidas rugby boots with the 3 orange stripes across. It was still very basic in those days. And I told him I needed to kind of wear them in. So we put a mattress on the ground, and I tackled him repeatedly into the mattress just to check if my boots are all right. But I think that's about as mean as I was. As you go, I think the important thing is, as you go through life, there's people below you and there's people above you. From a time point of view, and those people can land up being your employee, and they can land up being your boss. Your generosity of spirits and your attitude towards people, lives on with you forever. And it's people have got memories, good and bad.
Yeah. No, I mean, you even shared a story. I don't know if you'd be comfortable in even sharing it now, just in terms of how Michael has had full circle with regards to the scholarship, for instance, and the family that was involved in that scholarship, and how it went full circle. Can you just maybe share a little bit of an anecdote around that?
Yeah, so I was your classic, I served as a trustee on the Michael board, so there were a number of times when people had to discuss the bad debts and people who couldn't afford to stay at the school, and I was in that category. I was on the problem list. So my dad went bankrupt, I think, when I was about grade 10. So I had a 75% scholarship. I still don't know to this day, but I don't think the last 25% got paid for the last year or two. And when I got asked to stay on for post-matric as senior prefect, I was aware of the fact that my family probably hadn't settled the bills. So I had an anonymous sponsor who was, I went through the whole of my final year, my post-matric year, serving as senior prefect, knowing that there was basically somebody else paying for 100% of my schooling. And the condition was that it was anonymous. The person wasn't looking for kudos or credit. And at the end of the year, I went to my housemaster, Andrew Cook, who'd facilitated it, and said to him, it's crazy. Like, at least we want to be able to thank the person. So I got told who it was, and got told, again, the condition was, didn't want a phone call or a meeting, just a letter. So it happened to be a guy called Dick Enthoven, who I was at school with Robbie and Adi Enthoven, the sons. And the father, I'd spent quite a few weekends at their place near the school on a Sunday afternoon. And so I wrote him a letter, and it was kind of acknowledged. And about probably 15 years later, about 10 years ago, I was sitting at Spear, which is a wine farm that they own. And I'd never actually seen him subsequent to the school years. And I was sitting with my wife and my young kids. And when I do a presentation or a little bit nervous, kind of clear my throat. And we're sitting at breakfast at Spear. And I said to I was kind of backing up a little bit and said to my wife, she looked at me, she's like, what are you doing? Why are you nervous? This is like breakfast on holiday on a Sunday with your kids. I said, it's the first chance I've got to be able to go and speak to him. So Dick Enthoven was sitting there, and I went and sat next to him, and I said, Dick, I'm not sure if you know you are. I'm Peter Armitage, and I said, no, I've been following your progress, and it was the first time that I was actually able to say thank you to him. And I clearly remember the key words that came through from that. He said to me, don't thank me, from a materiality point of view. It didn't mean a hell of a lot to him. He wanted to help. But he just asked me to pay it forward to somebody else, which I hopefully have taken to heart. And again, in an anonymous fashion. And then about 5 years ago, our business got a new investor, and that was through the Enthoven's private equity firm, Capricorn, in South Africa. So they've landed up now investing in my business, and they own 30% of what we do in our future. So there's some nice interaction with them. So it's a full circle from being schoolmates with somebody to some anonymous generosity through to actually being business partners 25 years later.
No, that's amazing. Hey? That's a phenomenal story. I was equally sponsored. We managed to keep our heads above the water, but I would have never been able to afford to come to Michaelhouse and had the opportunity had it not been for the bursary that I received. And my brother also received the bursary. So I was on 50% and my brother was on 75%. So I can certainly...
I mean, he was smarter than you.
Pardon? Yeah, much smarter.
He was smarter than you?
much smarter. He ended up doing the same degree and same qualification that I have, but definitely was much smarter. He got more A's than me. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's one of the things I've certainly taken forward from school is if you were to rank the academics through from 1 to 100, the success in life is certainly not a reflection of that. And in fact, my assessment is that being street savvy and street smart, together with obviously a certain level of intelligence, is one of the biggest, and EQ as well. Those and energy, those three factors, you put those together, it's far more important than getting all the A's.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just being, overall well-rounded. So this, take us through then your journey subsequent to Michaelhouse and that transition. Oh, and by the way, before we go there, are you still involved in the school at all? I know you mentioned that you are a trustee, or you were a trustee.
No, that ended.
Yeah,
up until about, I think, 4 years ago. I sat on the board of trustees of not of the school itself, but of the investment side of it. That's that's the business and the industry that I'm in. So Jamie Ingalls, in the early days of the Chairman's Club, approached me, got me to sign for my debit order, and asked me to come and sit in the investment committee, which I did, I think, for about 12 years. And that provides a lot of the capex that that keeps the school ahead of the guys in black and white, and it funds a lot of kids through the bursary program.
Yeah,
so it's subsequent to that, my kids are varsity now, so I haven't been involved in the school for a few years.
And what happened to Peter between Michaelhouse and Peter today? How was that transition to university?
So I progressed from the third team cricket captain. I think it was actually fourth team rugby, third team cricket. I'm not sure which was more impressive. But I think that was some of the best times of my life. And I think the Michaelhouse experience, and it's probably got a lot to do with boarding school. Everybody participates. The opportunity to participate in team sport and proudly lead that fourth team rugby onto the field and play cricket games. I think we played against, in the Maritzburg College days, the third team cricket was where the lazy first teamers would kind of pitch up every now and then. So I think the Maritzburg College scored about 295 for 4 declared. And I think we were all out for 14, but I was very, very proud to have top scored at 6. So I progressed from that, used those, what I learned on the sports field there, through to university, became a chartered accountant. I actually had quite a fun university time where I started off at school. I needed some money because my parents weren't providing me with any. Teddy's got some load shedding there, I think. I used to phone through the sports scores to the Sunday Times on a Saturday afternoon and got paid some cash for it. So post school, I went to the Natal Mercury newspaper and started writing for them. So I paid my way through university through a combination of a scholarship as well as working at the newspaper 3 or 4 nights a week, and then actually landed up covering Natal rugby. The rugby reporter died one year when I was about 20, and went through that journey. I then started off in the analyst role. I worked at Deutsche Bank, Merrill Lynch, and Investec. Along the way, I left the industry for 2 or 3 years when I was about 29, 30 years old, and spent 2 years in the internet era. Started a business called Africam, which broadcast wildlife all over the world. We were one of the top 15 websites in the world. But for those of you who happen to be around at that stage, the internet went into a boom and bust in 2000. I think the NASDAQ index went from about 5,000 to 800. And about 90% of the businesses that were listed on the NASDAQ went bankrupt. Then went back into work for Investec some time. And then about 11 years ago, I started the business that we're currently in. So we built up, with a bit of energy and the background that I had, we built up a business with about 110 billion rand of assets that we manage. We've got about 17,000 clients, and we've got 400 staff. And that's something we started from absolute scratch 10 or 11 years ago, which has been quite a proud achievement. And that's where we find ourselves today. And it feels kind of strange, and it's a very quick journey to feel that you sitting here. Only yesterday you were in school listening to people who are mentoring you, and 25 years later you're playing that role and being honored on a conversation where other people want to listen to your story. I'm not sure if you're still there, Teddy. You seem to have changed shape a little.
Yes, sorry, Peter. My power just went off, and I've got alternative. So Loretta is just going to take a few questions, and I'll be back online in the next 2 minutes.
Okay,
No
cool.
problem.
Hey guys, hey Peter. Apologies, technical issues. We literally just came back online with load shedding, and apologies, our host Teddy's experiencing. South Africa. This is just what happens, right?
No, absolutely. It's part of the joys, huh?
Exactly. And like on that, so your experiences, Peter, like obviously to get to where you are, you must have had some intense challenges to go through. What's your process in terms of managing the hard times, the ebbs and flows? For example, I can imagine now, finance, actually just go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, Loretta, a lot of it is, and it's quite I think a lot about this, the kind of era that the guys coming out of school and where they're faced, where there's probably a lot more tolerance for your kind of anxiety and mental health issues and the like, and I think to think back to our days, you kind of just had to get out of bed and put a smile on your face and carry on with it. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad. That's kind of where I have that dilemma. But I think when you look back over life's journeys, I think and if you picture it a bit like a graph, is not to get too depressed when you're at the bottom of the chart, and also not to get too filled with hubris when you're at the top of the chart. Because things can change very quickly. But if I think a positive mental attitude and when things are tough, to just keep on fighting and keep on going and keep your eye on the horizon, I think is incredibly important. And on the other side of it, I think I've been through massive highs and lows. At the age of 30, I was about a month away from listing a business on the London Stock Exchange, which would have theoretically been worth $250 million. 2 years later, it's all in tatters, and you kind of got to start again. But it's a beautiful part of the journey, and I think as you go through your journey from school to wherever you're going to land up, there's a lot of people kind of mix up your kind of net asset value and financial wealth and the like with happiness. And I can genuinely say the correlation when you look back between your wealth and your health and happiness is quite low. I think some of the most fun times I've had, I remember after that, the internet experience back in 2020, I got a bit, I think it's probably the only time in my life I got a bit depressed, and I kind of I just needed to take my breath. I think I lay on the couch at home for about 6 weeks or so. And my wife very patiently, I think we'd had a second kid who was about 3 months old. So I didn't play much of a parenting role for a month or two. And eventually she gave me a kick up the arse and said, get back to work. So I went through what, before that I was the number one analyst in the country, flying high, on the cover of the Financial Mail, believing that I was completely unbeatable. And I found myself 3 years later kind of filling in an application form at an employment agency for a job. And I kind of still, I was probably still way too arrogant, believing that, what was I doing there? Why was I filling in a form? I'd previously been poached to go and work for Merrill Lynch as a celebrity analyst. 3 years later, you're at the bottom. But I think the key thing is to understand your capabilities, your attitude, and everything that informs your backbone, and everything that you've learned hasn't changed, even if you're going through some tough times. And then, I've always been an entrepreneur. I was always going to start my own business, but I think in the industry that we're in, there's generational families in South Africa that have built up wealth over decades and more than 100 years, and they're relying on us to manage their financial futures. And so you need to have been through some market crashes and rises and gone through the ups and downs. And you can't start a financial services business, probably until you're kind of in your 40s. So I put my head down, carried on working hard. I used to run the investment side of Investec Wealth, and then started off our business at the age of about 40. So it's and then just started from scratch again. I think it's just energy and enthusiasm and belief. I think the other thing that I've learned in my game is we deal with, advise, and help some of the most successful people in the country, and you kind of get this impression or persona of people being supermen in some way, and we're all just ordinary people. And it's just, a lot of it is just people who've taken a chance and given themselves a chance. One of the sayings I like is that in order to score a goal, you've got to be on the field. And it's and a lot of people, I've a lot of our clients who've made a lot of wealth. It's about being on the field. They've had to shoot for goals lots of different times. They've missed a lot of times, but every now and then, I think there's a lot of good fortune and luck to financial success as well. And it's being, often being in the right place at the right time. But, people who sit and watch often point fingers or, kind of jealous of people's success, but they haven't given it a go and tried to be on the field to score that goal. So it's, just keeping that unwavering belief and optimism in what you're capable of and what you can do. And often that won't yield results, but you just got to keep on going and keep on trying. And in our game, I think the life and the journey along the path is a lot like financial markets, where make sure your trend is still upwards over a time period, but there's going to be fluctuations, and you're going to have good and bad luck along the way. But if you keep your ethics, if you keep your principles in place, and as I was saying, I don't know if you were on earlier whether load shedding was it affected you or not, but if you if you always behave reasonably and with respect to people, that returns to you over time. So you keep the things that you can control. You keep going, remain positive, and eventually the market comes back, and then suddenly life can change dramatically and positively in a very short time period.
No, for sure. I'm just going to ask you to just go back quickly before I get Teddy back. We've got a question here from Leo Coelho, who says, we've got great respect for anyone starting their own business, and to ask how you made the start, how you made that decision to find and start Anchor Capital. I think many guys would be really interested to know like that story and that journey.
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, you've got to have a bit of entrepreneurial spirit, and you've got to have, in making that decision and embarking on the journey, you've got to be comfortable for yourself that you've got the resilience to deal with the ups and downs. And in the early days of a business, that means a lot of times knocking on a door and having it shut in your face, and having the attitude, resilience, and energy to knock on the next door. And it's I say to our guys who start off and guys who are selling or trying to get clients, you got to work out your own ratio in life. And typically in our business, getting one client involves 5 meetings, and getting 5 meetings involves 30 phone calls, and to get that one client, and 29 people are going to have said no to you along the way. But the joy and exhilaration of getting that one client at the end of the day is, makes it all worthwhile. So number one, you got to have the appetite to be able to see your way through being able to knock on the door and make the phone call. And a lot of business and a lot about life is selling. You're either selling a product, you're selling a service, you're selling a brand, no matter what business you're in. So you've got to have the ability to do that, or surround yourself with people who can do that. So number one is the appetite. And I think for some people, it doesn't come naturally to do that. And they're probably, a lot of people are better suited to working for a company, and you can achieve a lot of success working for a good business or industry. So number one, having that appetite. Number two, kind of business model. I get a lot of people who come to me, and you can see they're great guys with a great attitude and a lot of energy, but the business kind of doesn't make sense. So make sure that it's filling a need. It's something that you think you can create a differentiation. It can be a new idea, or it can be an existing business where you think you can do it very well. I think the Anchor Capital business was something, by the time I started it, I'd done it. I'd been in that industry for 12 or 13 years, and it's hugely competitive. There's no real magic or massive differentiation between one player or another. And then it all becomes about people. So you've then got to have 2 people parts to it. One is the people that you're working with, and those first few partners that you choose to work with you in a business are almost everything. And I think one of the key things that I really didn't think about 10 or 15 years ago is making sure you've got complementary skills, because you don't want a partner. Let's say there's 5 of you in a business. You don't want all of you to be salespeople, and nobody's good at admin or running the business or marketing or making stuff work. So you need an element of marketing, you need some intelligence behind the business, you need sales, but you need it all to work, and you've got to have complementary skills and people who can tick all those boxes. But first and foremost, I've got some guys working for me who are real stars, but would never be, would never be able to sell anything. So being able to sell is the number one criteria when you start a business. And it doesn't have to be you. You can hire some good people to do it. But no matter how good your product or service is, you've got to have the ability to market it and get it out to a community of people. So there's the people who work with you. And then the most challenging part, and I think where people get very frustrated, is the capital to be able to run with the business. So, have a clear plan as to what capital you've got available. Often you rely on an angel investor. If you're lucky enough, your parents would help you out, or your parents' friends, or somebody who's got some capital. And to make sure that you've got enough capital to kind of, if you do, every single business plan I've seen for a new business is probably over optimistic by 50 to 100%. So look at different base cases, make sure you've got enough capital. And I think ideally you want to be in a situation where you don't give too much of away of your business in the early days. Our business, when we started, it wasn't worth a cent. After a year, it's worth $1 million, or after 4 years, it's a multiple of that, and after another 5 years, it's a multiple of that. And you look back, I certainly look back, and the guys who really scored are the guys who put a bit of cash and helped us out in the really early days. So it's I guess those are the kind of key attributes of getting a business started. But it's a lot of it is having that energy to get out of bed in the morning when times are tough, and to keep on going and to go harder.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Peter. I'm just going to ask our host Teddy to come back on screen. Thank you so much for bearing with us, guys. We're all in this together. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.
Teddy, I see you've moved to the piano room, huh?
Yeah, the piano room has got a lot more energy than than the other room I was in. But apologies for that. It's actually not just load shedding, but there's a power outage. So we had to log something with Eskom. But anyways, Eskom is not going to take energy out of us, and let's keep going. Absolutely. Firstly, Peter, I am a proud subscriber of Anchor News. I have been a subscriber now for 10 years, and every morning between 6:52 and 7:08, I get news from your team, and so I just want to thank you for that.
Sure. That's I'm not sure if you missed or part of the conversation before when the load shedding hit, but I think when we started off our business, we've got to find a way to differentiate.
Yeah.
We've grown from, we must have 10,000 competitors, and we've grown to the top 2 or 3 in the industry over a period of 10 or 11 years. And we started off going, it was just me and a few mates. So you had to create an appearance of being bigger than you are. So from about month 3 of our business, every morning at 7 o'clock, we formulated a 15-page investment document. We outsourced quite a bit of it to India. Their time zone is about 4 hours ahead. But obviously we added our own intelligence and views, and I used to sit every night writing investment views and perspectives and trying to capture stuff that would keep people interested. So we, as of month 4 of our business, you could subscribe to a daily newsletter, which gave you the feeling that you were hearing from a really big business. And that's been, I think, one of our kind of secret sources. So today we've probably got about 25,000 subscribers to those newsletters, and it's amazing. We're providing intellectual capital, and we're providing people with some information and resources that makes us welcome into their email inbox, as opposed to it being a frustration. So they appreciate it, and the cost of that is a fraction of the cost of having a billboard in William Nicol Road in Johannesburg.
And I've also seen that PAC end up in various WhatsApp groups that I'm part of. So your Anchor News for me, going back to my early days, so it was actually when I started working, and you take an interest in investments. I'm a CA as well, and I was at Investec. I think you and I were at Investec together. We didn't know each other, but there was a bit of an overlap. And I had heard of you, and I think you took a few Investec guys when you started the business. But the one thing that I do remember was that secret sauce in Anchor News being available every single morning, because that is the one thing that is top of mind. This is before Twitter, so 5-10 minutes in the morning, get an update across the world, and I think that's fantastic. So well done on that.
Yeah, and I think also the other lesson from that is trying to find a way to differentiate. So there's lots of different newsletters in the morning, But it's, one thing that I thought about and realized was you're only really going to spend time learning the first one, reading the first one that you get. So if we get into your inbox at 7 o'clock, anybody who sends it from 7:05 onwards, you're going to kind of go, well, I've, kind of consumed the information and the news. So, that's just trying to find a way to market your product or service in a way that doesn't cost you millions and millions of rands is part of the success, especially in the early days.
And Peter, just to get into a little more detail around your journey as an entrepreneur, quite often you never make it yourself. I think there's always some sort of support that you receive in the form of either a mentor or someone that you look up to. Even the likes of the Warren Buffetts of the world, they looked up to the Benjamin Grahams in terms of their investment styles. Was there anyone for you as part of your entrepreneurship journey that either invested in your business or you looked up to, or anyone that guided you in getting your business up and running?
Yeah, so I think, Teddy, I mean, part of the theme of what I was talking about today is having respect and generosity towards people, whether they're your juniors or your seniors, because you never know where somebody else is going to pop up in your life. And I think the thing that that probably I appreciated the most was in my days as an analyst, where my job was to service Coronation, Investec, Old Mutual with investment views and perspectives while working at Deutsche Bank and Merrill Lynch, dealing with a lot of company CEOs where, my job was often being a critic of what they did or giving opinions which they might have considered as adverse. But having that respect and dealing with them professionally and with some generosity of spirit, when I then went off and started my own business, what I find incredible when you talk about a support and a mentoring perspective was the number of them who kind of approached me once they heard I'd resigned and, kind of offered advice, support, and became our investors. And investors in our world is two things. One, people who put a bit of money into the business to fund our working capital. And the second thing is people who said, hell yeah, I mean, I enjoyed working with you and I'm there to support you, and became our first clients. So I still remember there's a guy called Mike Teke who's becoming one of South Africa's top entrepreneurs. He owns Seriti Coal. And in my days as an analyst, he was, when Optimum Coal was listed, he was the CEO, but was very new to the role and came along with some high-flying, fast-talking corporate finance guys. And I think people felt that they were really the guys who put it together, and he was playing a role. Whereas Mike is, in fact, one of the most competent, straight down the line, straight shooting, focused, energetic businessmen I've come across. So in my days at Investec, when Optimum Coal used to come and report to us, I think I paid him that due respect. He was still in his in his formative years as the CEO of a business. When I then went in and started Anchor, they had sold Optimum Coal to Glencore. It was the asset which subsequently, 5 years later, became Glencore got involved in selling it to the Guptas, and it became a little bit tarred from that perspective. But when he realized some investment cash for the first time in his life, I just started Anchor, and he phoned me up. And he, so kind of partly a mentor from just a behavioral perspective, but he landed up becoming my business partner. And because of the respect that I'd shown of him in his early days is his role. So the money was sitting at a big bank. It spent a few days there. He became one of our core investors. About 6 months later, said, "I love what you're doing. I want to buy 10% of your business." So when we listed our business, he was the chairman, and he's bought up more, owns 25% of our business, and he's one of the most energetic businessmen you'll ever find. I think I chat to him about 6:30 every morning. So, mentors are people above you, people, Mike and I are similar ages. I think I'm actually a bit older than him. But I think you can learn a hell of a lot from people on all levels. So a lot of support from business community, and a lot of people remember how you treated them along the way. And I always say, just be careful how you treat your juniors at work, because one day they can be your boss as well.
No, definitely. There's a question here from Will Green, and Will is asking about what your kids are actually studying at school. I think he's got as a parent, I'm also a parent. My kids are a lot younger, but Will is asking, how would you advise parents as their kids go through university in a world which is really future proof around technology, surrounded by ChatGPT and TikTok and social media and AI and machine learning? What is your advice to parents in terms of what their kids should be studying?
Yeah, so
how should
I
they
think
be
they
approaching
should.
University?
Yeah. So my kids are, I've got two kids at Cape Town University. They're both studying Bachelor of Business Science. And I've got one kid still at a girl at Cornwall Hill College. I think the key to what people study is what they're passionate about. You're going to do well at whatever you wake up in the morning and can excite you. So in my business, the investment world there's lots of different attributes to it. But I've got engineers, accountants, lawyers, finance people with PhDs, people who've learned through the School of Hard Knocks. So I think the actual grounding in what you study, find something that you can be passionate about, you can enjoy. I think as you progress in the working world, getting a good entry point into a reasonable business in a reasonable industry, I think your metal, your capabilities, and that. I guess what I'm trying to say, 3, 4, 5 years after you start working, the qualifications actually count for very little. I think you learn. I learned 90%. Or if 100 was what I knew when I was 30, I'd learned 90% of it between the ages of 25 and 30. I think once you're in the working world and you see how the real world works, and it's one of the things that I think is very valuable, and we sit in a circle of influence and are privileged to the extent that most of us, when our kids come through, we can find a place for them to do like an internship in school holidays at a business. And that to me is the most valuable, for them to do that early on in their university careers. And I think certainly I've seen with my kids and their mates that I do that with, they approach university completely differently. Because often the university lecturer themselves doesn't know, they haven't worked in the real world and seen the reality of waking up in the morning at 8 and having to work hard and deal with working through a corporate ladder or starting your own business or the like. So I think I think the whole technology and that aspect of it is exciting rather than a massive threat. I think if you can embrace that, understand it, you can use it to enhance what you do and how you work, as opposed to it being a threat. I think it will replace a lot of mundane tasks and repetitive work. But I think as soon as you've got up to university stage or beyond, I think the way people study, the way work will be done will be very different in 5 or 10 years. Certainly from an investment point of view, we take a lot of cognizance of businesses that can be enhanced or threatened by artificial intelligence. But the working world is also very different to how it was 5 or 10 years ago. And that was very different to how it was 5 or 10 years before that. When I started working as an analyst, it's quite embarrassing to say, I used to write a report on a company. I'd phone my clients at Old Mutual or Investec or Coronation and say, I've just written an amazing report, put it in an envelope, lick a stamp and post it to them, and they'd get it 7 days later. today, if an analyst puts out a report, it's on Bloomberg's and the whole world knows about it 30 seconds later. So things evolve and the world changes. I think it's incredibly exciting how things can be enriched and the mundane, repetitive tasks can be taken out of our lives and our world to focus on added value and the relationships between people. Simple things that have changed from COVID, like we used to traipse around the country doing presentations, spending R1 million in a week, seeing 1,000 people. Now we'll have a webinar, an Anchor Capital webinar, doesn't cost us a cent, and we're sharing the same hour with 1,500 to 2,000 people. So it's about focusing on taking advantage of the way things change, and it's in our world, it's about getting money to work for you and investing in things that can create value. So we're terribly excited about technology in the future. And, on the stock market, you can hire and fire any CEO by buying or selling a share. And the CEOs that I think can take advantage of this changing world, put some money behind them, and they can do the work for me. That's the lazy man's argument to be an investor. Effectively, I've got 400 employees, but in our investment portfolios, I employ another 50 CEOs, and those are the ones that I consider the best in the world. So they're actually working for me. So it's I don't think we should approach the new and changing world with trepidation. I think it's the opportunity set and the way things are done will change dramatically. But I think that can enrich all of our lives.
And how are you future-proofing your business in terms of things that are currently happening, what's to come? Are you doing robo-advisory? Are you using ChatGPT? Is there anything that you are specifically looking at to future-proof your business?
Yeah, I think we're constantly doing that. Our industry in South Africa went through quite an interesting phase with the whole robo-advisor environment. It must have been about 5 or 6 years ago, where everybody thought that would be the future and would take over all of our industries. So we must have wasted probably, 7 or 8 million rand going back 5 or 6 years ago. And we'd actually partnered with one of the big global robo-advisor businesses, but we developed our own technology. And so did Sanlam, so did Signia, and quite a few others, all at a similar time period. And we all launched our products, and 6 months later, none of us were talking about them because we had heaps of people coming and playing with it, but nobody actually people are happy to bank and do simple things using technology where the cost to them or the opportunity cost is not enormous. But when asked to actually rely on a computer to advise them as to how to invest their money, especially with people who've spent a lifetime, picture you spent a lifetime, you sell your business for 50 million rand, and you now want to partner with somebody to look after your financial future. There's not a hope in hell you're going to go and use a computer to determine you want to meet with somebody, you want to look them in the eyes, you want to be comfortable and confident that they're serious, educated people who can take it forward. So I think the technology side will replace the lower end of our market. And lower end, I simply mean smaller investment amounts, although that hasn't been the experience in South Africa so far. So I think the personal interaction and that kind of thing won't change. Our technology offering to our clients changes all the time, and we spend money on developing that. So their experience is enhanced by technology. And the way we transact and manage portfolios, I can sit here in 30 seconds time. I can have all of my clients, if there's a bad result that comes through from NVIDIA tonight, I can sell all of my clients' shares over the course of 10, 15 minutes. So the technology enhances our ability to implement and do stuff and our ability to garner information. So the artificial intelligence is, I think, a massive inflection point. I think the internet in 1995, the iPhone in 2000 were two massive inflection points, and I think artificial intelligence is the next one. But it's I certainly learned that in 2000 in the internet days. where we had one of the top 15 websites in the world, but it was still 5 years too early. So there's a lot of stuff still to learn. In our investment world, we're not investing in, there's 20 great stories of companies and businesses that are going to benefit from it. Only 2 or 3 of those 20 will probably exist in 5 years' time. I've learned those lessons. So we're rather investing in the established businesses that are taking advantage of it. So you want to be in an NVIDIA or an ASML who make the equipment which creates the servers and capacity to service the world, where the demand for computing capacity will probably go up by a multiple of 10 because of AI over the course of the next 5 years. So we want to, I'm happier to invest in the businesses that we know will benefit and have got the infrastructure and services, as opposed to the shiny new things where the success rate in them is not guaranteed at all. We'll take some exposure and take some bets, but it's the core of our clients' portfolios will be in stuff where we're very certain that they're going to be big beneficiaries of the changing trends.
And then, Peter, just one final question. It's from Hilton Giles. He's asking a question really what relates to internships that you mentioned earlier. And his question specifically relates to what advice would you have for finance university students who are trying to get their foot in the door with companies? And I think here, the context really does speak to internships, and internships are not really widely popular in South Africa if you compare it to like America, where America it's all about summer internships, whereas here it's a bit difficult to navigate companies. So how would you advise a finance students to approach a bank or approach yourself even to get that exposure?
It's very difficult because the supply and demand equation is limited. And I think one of the things to understand is it's a one-way equation. If I'm going to be completely honest with students and that coming through on their holidays, you get very little out of them because it's really a teaching mode as opposed to the other way around. And somebody who's going to hang around for a week or 2 or 3, it takes you 3 to 6 months before you're learning how to add value. So it is kind of a part of the generosity of a business and the kind of goodwill in helping people develop. So it's something that we do quite a lot. The bottom line is, I was saying we're lucky in this kind of community where most people will know somebody who can help them access a business that they can chat to do an internship. And I'm talking about kind of holiday work as opposed to 6 months after university, where a lot of the banks and the like have got internship, which is the year or 2 after university. I'm talking more specifically about during the 3 or 4 years while you're studying. So we do a lot of that. There's obviously only a certain number of people you can accommodate, but I think the reality is you kind of either have to know somebody in a space or know somebody who knows somebody, or approach, be innovative. If you don't, one of the things that I actually still want to do, I've been saying it for quite some time, is just to do a little course and tell people how to write their CVs. I get bewildered when people know they're competing with hundreds of other people. They send through a one-page Word document which says, I went to school and then I went to university. Can I get a job? Just sell yourself. Everything in life is about selling and marketing your product or service. Get out there, tell people why you're different. Tell them why you want to work with them for a week. And in that week, you want to find a magical way to change their business, or, just have a bit of character. I think it's the CVs and things that come through with some character that are the ones I respond to.
Well, I've got a solution for that. Is you can put that on ChatGPT, and I'm pretty sure they can come back to you with the best CV you can think of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so. I mean, the one thing I've learned to ChatGPT is I can spot it from a mile away.
Yeah.
There's some quite repetitive, lots
Yeah.
of use of flowery adjectives and long explanations about things. So we got one of our biggest clients in the other day, and one of my staff members sent me a congratulation note in ChatGPT. So I went into ChatGPT and I said, please write my boss a congratulations. And I put in a few of the common elements. And I could actually, but I could profile the question to get the answer back. And about 70% of it was the same. So I just emailed him back to say ChatGPT says hi and thank you.
Well, enough about ChatGPT. Peter, any closing comments that you'd like to share with the community? Any piece of advice, just generally in things that we've spoken about throughout the course of the conversation?
Yeah, I think there's been a hell of a lot. I think I think it's a hell of a privilege to be part of a community and a kind of aura and ethos of what we've got. I think a lot of it is, I think and I hope what's still coming through from people coming through the school is kind of some the characteristics of character, humility, drive. I think one of the special things is everybody getting a chance at everything. And I think I think there is certainly a level of character and persona that you can feel when people from, and I'd include a lot of the other schools in the type of category that we've had the privilege of participating in. But it's support somebody else, have respect for people above and below you. I think that will come back to you many times. And it's we've had a lot of privilege in what we've had, and I think, like the story I said right at the beginning, is to pay things forward is a great privilege as well, and that's what I encourage all of you to do.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your contribution to the Michaelos community, and thanks for sharing your experience. A lot of them being personal, a lot of them, of course, being professional. But we truly, truly appreciate your time and for everything that you've shared. I'm sure everything that you've shared is going to make a massive difference to a lot of people in the community. And so thank you for all of your contributions as well. Just being part of the community from the onset in terms of your time at Michaelos right through to when you were a trustee until recently. But I know that you continue to pay it forward. And thank you for the advice overall. So
cool.
Look
Thanks,
forward
man.
to
It was a lot of
the
fun.
next engagement. And it was also great to meet a fellow Penzancer. I don't think that there's too many people that have shared our journey. I know. What are the chances? Yeah. Anyways, Peter, take care. Have a lovely evening.
Cool.
And thank you so much
Thanks
for everyone in the community. Keep well. Cheers.
A pleasure. Cheers. Bye. Cool.